Hey YouTube, it is League Turnover today, and out is this week is Great League Remix, and what we're gonna do, so we're gonna go over these Pokemon that are banned. I talk about this because it's whack. Then we're gonna go into the top rankings for Pokemon and analyze why they are the way they are. And the third thing we're gonna do is look at 7 teams to build. So timestamps below if you want to go to jump anywhere in the video. But I think it's worth talking about these banned Pokemon. So how it works is they're supposed to ban 20 Pokemon that is used by ace or above players from, it's supposed to be the previous season, right? So you look at this list and you have a Sandslash, a Ninetales, Wiggly, Noctowl, Lantern, Azumarill, Umbreon, Pelipper, Sableye, Medi, Altaria, Registeel, Defense Bastiodon, Toxicroak, Scrafty, Galarian Stunfisk, Greninja, Talonflame, and Trevenant. So right off the bat, to me, this looks like a list that was put together like 4 years ago, right? Because you have Trevenant, which hasn't been used, it's somewhat making a comeback, but it hasn't been useful since Seed Bomb got nerfed. You have Greninja on here, which with no Swamperts. So it makes no sense that Swampert, which has been a top 5 ranked Pokemon that has been around forever with Hydro Cannon in the Great League, is not on this list, but Greninja is. You have Noctowl, which got nerfed a couple seasons ago, and that is not the go-to choice anymore. You have 3 Charmers on here. Azumarill makes sense. A9tails kind of makes sense. Wiggly, I'm kind of surprised that it's so high on this list. And again, Registeel. Like Registeel was everywhere like 4 years ago, but since like Gligar is everywhere, Poliwrath is everywhere. Which, hello, look at this list. Gligar and Poliwrath not even on this list. And this is last season, so Poliwrath makes sense because Skull just got buffed this season, but Gligar got buffed last season. And it was everywhere last season because it was the best answer. Like, Charjabug isn't on this list. Lickitung's not on this list. So this is just like a really weird list. But what you can do is, there's 2 things you can do. You can just go look at PvPoke rankings or content creators telling you what are going to be the best Pokemon. Or you can look at these Pokemon and make it your own analysis. So the first thing I said was like, why are there 3 Charmers on this list? A9, Wiggly, Azumarill. With 3 Charmers on this list, to me, stuff like Dragon, Dark, and Fighting get a boost, right? There's only so many fairies in this meta to begin with, and you just ban 3 of them in a list of 20. Like, to me, that just means that Dragon, Dark, Dragon, Dark, and Fighting are probably going to be higher. Fighting even more so that you've got Pelipper and Altaria banned, right? So, and Noctowl. So there's 3 Flyers banned, and Talonflame, right? So lots of Flyers banned. So I would expect to see an increase in fighters just by looking at this. You also have a lot of the walls to, so Carbink's not banned. Bastiodon's bad, but Carbink's not. But you have a lot of walls to Flyers here banned, right? Galarian Stunfisk, Bastiodon, Registeel, right? Those are 3 just like steel Pokemon that would otherwise ban Flyers. Like, not ban Flyers, but like limit Flyers. So having these banned probably means that you're going to see more Flyers in general. Plus Lantern, right? Plus Lantern's banned. So there's your like four of your toughest answers to general Flyers. Medi's whatever. I think that like Medi's basically been replaced with Poliwrath anyways this season, so I don't see that Medi being banned an issue, or Toxicroak, right? Everyone's just gonna use Poliwrath because I think Poliwrath is one of the best in this meta right now. But again, looking at the other safe swaps in this meta, Gligar, Lickitung, like these are, I put out an all safe swap team in the Open Great League with Gligar, Lickitung, and Poliwrath that did great for me, and none of those are banned in this meta. So it'll be an interesting meta. Let's see how it plays out. Let's just look at the top 20 rankings so we can stop guessing. But again, right off the bat, this is not surprising what you're seeing here, right? This just basically looks like a somewhat modified normal Open Great League list. You got, I said the Flyers are going to be stronger. So you have Skarmory at number 1 since the buff, and you got Mandibuzz, right? Look how high Mandibuzz jumped. And Mantine at 6, and Gligar at 7, and Shadow Skarmory at 9. Right, so a lot of Flyers dominating the thing. Again, when your Steels and Lantern are banned, you have way more freedom. Carbink is kind of like one of the only like fairy / strong rock type Pokemon that are available in this meta, and it has the XL, so it's always such a good Pokemon. So just having that with the others banned just makes it easy to put on top. Vigoroth, anytime there's a limited meta, Vigoroth just seems to rise to the top. I said that like fighters are generally better. I know Vigoroth is not a fighter, but it is a counter user. So it is a counter user, generally better, since all the flyers are banned. Guzzlord, there's your first Dragon Dark, and Zweilous at 14, there's your second Dragon Dark, and that makes sense, right? 3 fairies are banned. With 3 fairies banned, Zweilous and Guzzlord as Dragon Darks are going to have way more freedom in this meta, right? Outside of Carbink on number 2, and I mean Skarmory at 1, but you can like chip with Dark Pulse and Crunch with the Darks here. But outside of Carbink at number 2, you're essentially free, right? There's no steals on this top list. There is Aurorus as an ice, and Poliwrath and Vigoroth as counter users. So you do need to watch out for counter users too. But I think Dragons and Darks are going to be strong in this meta. Shadow Bombsnow is again one of those that in the open meta I always say is overrated. I think it's strong because it just, you have such pressure and coverage, right? Because you cover flyers and you cover water, both or which are heavily represented in this meta, right? So you're going to lose to Skarmory because now it's got that buff Steel Wing, but you got Mandibuzz and Gligar for the flyers, and you have Poliwrath and Swampert and Quagsire as your water. So like it's just a nice coverage all around. But yes, and you have Guzzlord and Zweilous as dragons, right? So it's a nice coverage. Why I think it's so high is because it just has such nice coverage for the top meta Pokemon here. But in practice, it's a lot tougher to use given how glassy it is. A couple of safe swaps on here. I'll just go over Poliwrath and Lickitung right now and Cress. I'll put in Cress as a safe swap because one of Cress's issues was just getting walled by steals, right? If you safe swap Cress and you get met with a steal, like a Registeel or something, you have nothing to throw. Now you have a little more throw. Everyone's running Future Sight now, so if you see some of these dark dragons, you still have nothing to throw, so keep that in mind. It may be safer to use it on the lead, just in case you see one of those Pokemon. But yeah, Poliwrath, Lickitung, Cresselia, just generally safe in this meta. I'll put Double and Vigoroth just as general safe swaps on this meta. Kind of glossed over Swampert and Quagsire. My boys have basically been unchecked this entire meta. If you look at my team yesterday, Whiscash got me to expert rank the other day, so I think that it is a strong Pokemon. Mudboys are just generally strong because there's not a ton of grass in this meta. And with Flyers being unchecked here, there's probably going to be even more grass in this meta. Less grass in this meta. And then Aurorus, I think Aurorus is trying to fill a void of dealing with all these Flyers that you're going to, Flyers and Dragons that you're going to see. So a Rock Ice Pokemon as your answer to all the Flyers and Dragons that you should see based on what is banned. So what I did is when I make teams, I always try and start with like the top 20 Pokemon because I think that's what a lot of people put together. And now just a generally safe team is Skarmory double Poliwrath, right? You have Skarmory, which is your Steel. You have 2, still going to have problems against like other Steels. So I put in 2 counter users, but 2 very, very safe counter users in Poliwrath and Double, which can, again, there's not a ton of hard losses in here, right? Cress is going to be your biggest issue for your backline, but like if you use Double as the safe swap, you have payback for Cress. So that's not even a bad matchup. Not a ton of counter users on this top list. So both are just generally safe down the board, plus Skarmory as a flyer should be pretty clear for most of this meta. So that's just a very safe top 20 pick team. This one I start with Carbink. I'm like, okay, if you're going to be the only sort of rock fairy user in this meta, let's see what your matchups look like. And there are a lot of just the mud boys or just mud Pokemon, including Clodsire, Whiscash, Quagsire down there, plus Skarmory. Like Skarmory wins now, just going with like the boosted Steel Wing. So in general, you're bulky, but you need to cover your ground weakness. So I covered it with Superior. So that was the best answer for the ground Pokemon. But then it left you kind of weak to Skarmory. And I was going through the meta of what I think could also just cover this meta. And I was like, Mandibuzz is on the top ranked because of what I said. Like it is basically not a ton of ice. There's some ice, but not a ton of ice. less fairies. So Mandibuzz as a dark Pokemon seems to fit the bill of something that is generally strong in this meta, given what is banned. So that's how you cover it. If you're seeing a lot of Skarmories in your range, that team may be a little harder to run because you don't have like a pure answer to that. I'll talk about my last team. I do think Electric are going to have some play in this meta. So we'll talk about those in a minute. This one I started with Shadow Gligar because I'm like, Gligar's one of the top Pokemon as a safe swap. But if you look at the matchups, it's like, you got some ice on there with Aurorus. You have Skarmory, which is a wall because it walls every one of your moves. And some of these other like bulky Pokemon like Lickitung, Guzzlord, like still win. So you actually have quite a lot of losses. So I'm like, okay, if you're going to be weak to some of these things, what do you need? You need to cover for some of their flyers, and you need to cover for the bulky Darks and Lickitung and stuff. So I put in Surf Edge, which again, I think that with the Fairies banned and with a lot of Flyers banned, Surf Edge is actually pretty sneaky. Why use Surf Edge instead of like Poliwrath? You can use Poliwrath. I'm just trying to give you like different team ideas, different Pokemon ideas that you can use. So it's not just 10 Pokemon on the same like 7 teams, right? So Surf Edge fits the bill. If you've never used it, super glossy, but really, really hard hitting with those stab counters. And then you have you can run it with Brave Bird if you want to nuke, or you can run just Night Slash, Leaf Blade. Both are Leaf Blade is the harder hitting one in general. And then Dugong as your like sort of safe swap to deal with flyers and just bulk, right? Because Gligar's okay bulk. Surf Edge is super glossy. So you need some bulk on this team and you need some flyer coverage. So Dugong fits the bill for those things that you need. So anytime there's a limited meta, Vigoroth is a top Pokemon for obvious reasons. It's just super safe. Again, look down the board. It's very kind of what you saw on the first page with Poliwrath and Double, right? Just a very safe Pokemon, even in bad matchups. There's not a ton of counter users. There's some counter users in this, but there's not like Mediva's banned and stuff like that, and Toxicroak is banned. So there's less counter users, and Vigoroth's just generally safe. So you can, I started with building around Vigoroth, but you can start by building around like a core and then putting Vigoroth in as your safe swap if you want to. I put in Jellicent because I just used Jellicent the other day on a Great League team that's going to have to come in a couple weeks when Great League Open comes back. And Jellicent was actually like kind of sneaky strong because you have like the Poliwrath everywhere. It's just like a wall to Poliwrath, right? Because you resist the counters, you resist the ice, and you resist the water. So it's just like a nice wall to Poliwrath, and it's got some bulk and it's got some nice coverage. And I think Lickitung, although is in this meta, I think it's actually going to be less around in this meta, quite honestly, which I think is going to increase in darks because Lick is resisted, which is Lickitung's one of like strongest features. So I think Jellicent is probably going to have a little more freedom. Just watch out for the darks. I think is more of an issue than Lickitung, quite honestly. And then still kind of had a weakness to like Mandibuzz stuff. So I put in Clodsire because Clodsire is kind of bulky, spammy, decent hard hitting, nice coverage. Obviously Gligar is one thing that's gonna wall, and Skarmory is gonna wall like all your moves. So you need to like watch out for that. But otherwise, I think it is a strong Pokemon there. There is Swampert, and oh yeah, there's Guzzlord, right? I said Guzzlord is gonna be a super suit dark Zweilous. Guzzlord, I think Guzzlord just has more bulk than Zweilous. A very strong meta. There's Carbink, obviously is gonna kill you as your fairy. But outside of the fairy, like I even said in like bad matchups against Skarmory, you can still throw Crunch. So look at that down the board. Bulk, not super hard losses, kind of stay in with a lot of stuff. So very strong there. And then I actually went to Crest next because I was going down the list. I'm like, oh yeah, Crest has a safe swap. I'm like, this is a super bulky team. And I'm like, this team also does not have much to throw against steals, and I need a harder hitter. So Swampert fits the bill there. So Guzzlord, basically you're only leaving the fairies, and then you can use Crest as a safe swap, and then as like a fairy ice, and then Swampert in the back as your like actual charge move pressure. And what I like about this team, you can also like lead Swampert. You can lead Swampert and Guzzlord, it's up to you. Why I always like leading Swampert is it really has one weakness, and you can like just use the other two as basically third shields and just kind of run with Swampert in this meta if you want. Because then I don't think there's a ton of grass, so if you're in just a lot of neutral matchups and you have shield advantage, you're in a pretty good spot with Swampert. Number 6, I put in Lickitung, but again, look at Lickitung's matchups. That's not something you would expect Lickitung to be at. But it's like, again, you know Poliwrath is everywhere. You know Vigoroth is going to be one of the best in the meta. Skarmory is going to be high. These darks are going to come out. It's like, that's a lot of stuff that actually can deal with Lickitung. I think Lickitung is still just strong just based on its bulk and moveset and everything. But it's not as strong in this play as it is just an open Great League when you have a variety of Pokemon. And it's not just a variety of Pokemon you have in open Great League. It's a Pokemon in open Great League that scare away some of these things that are rising here in the limited meta. So if I'm going to be weak to like fighters and darks and stuff like that, I need 2 answers for those. If I started with Toxapex as an answer to like sort of the fighters and stuff like that, and then I put in Steelix because that is actually kind of a nice answer to some of these other Pokemon like darks and stuff like that will resist Lickitung, because a lot of these are like Dragon Breath users like Guzzlord and stuff like that, where Steelix, you still have that dragon moveset even if you're not getting the Breaking Swipe nerf 100% of the time, right? So Steelix, you might see a rise in Steelix of those who have been sitting on it since it got nerfed this season. And very off the board here, I started with Aurorus because, again, ice. You can even put in like Abomasnow, just giving that like ice rock coverage for what is going to be flyers outside of Skarmory, flyers and darks. So that's why I start with Aurorus. Obviously, you got some weaknesses. You're weak to fight. Like Aurorus has so many weaknesses: fighting, like steel, water. Like there's quite a few. So Chestnut seemed to fit the bill for the majority of those. And then I need one more, and I put in Zapdos. Zapdos down the board does not have a good rating. If I didn't have Aurorus on this team, like everyone knows I love running Togedemaru, I think electrics are going to be kind of interesting in this one, because you have like Skarmory, which should be like one of the top ones. Like Togedemaru would be nice because it has steel, so it would be better against like the Rock Throw of Carbink. Dragons are obviously still tough, and ground Pokemon like Gligar are tough, but just in neutral situations, like you have Poliwrath, which is weak to electric. Your Mudboys actually resist electric, so you need some second coverage move there. So yeah, you need to, if you're gonna run an electric, you need to watch out for all the ground Pokemon and all the sort of I'd say dragon Pokemon are going to be your main 2 that you need to deal with. But I think electric are going to have like a sneaky play in this. I'm going to try and definitely build a team around an electric Pokemon. Anyways, that is the Great League remix. Let me know in the comments below what you are going to be running. If there's any like Pokemon not on this top 20 list where you're like, oh yeah, you're definitely sleeping on this Pokemon. Like this Pokemon should be very, very meta. I'm just going to go to like PvPoke rankings and just quickly check like the 21 through 40 range just to see if there's anything that like jumps off me. So right off the bat, you have, again, more flyers, Pidgeot, Golbat. You have more Dragon, Arctibax, Dragonair, right? That's not surprising. That's exactly what I expected. You then have a couple ice to deal with those things, Walrein and Dewgong, right? So it's kind of like a triangle there, which I expect this. Whiscash I already talked about. Jellicent I already added in. Shadow Machamp at 32, right? So you can use Machamp, you can use Surfetched. Gliscor as another flyer ground if you don't want to use Gligar. And then a couple more fighters and Hitmontop down here. More dragons and Dragonite and Hakamo, right? So it's kind of what I talked about in the lead, right? With all the fairies banned and with the lots of flyers banned, fighting and dragons should see a huge increase in this meta. And then Obstagoon at 44, there's your dark, right? Charjabug, there's one that hasn't been banned. Togedemaru, Charjabug, Togedemaru, there's 45, 48. There's your electric that I was talking about. I think I like using Togedemaru, but I think Charjabug is probably the better Pokemon to use, quite honestly. And then you get your other sort of normal Great League Pokemon, Skeledirge at 53, Froslass at 54, Superior at 55. Yeah, and then you're going down to like some off picks here. But yeah, that's kind of what I expected for this meta. And you can just kind of look at what is banned and just make that kind of easy correlation between like what's banned and what should rise because of it and what will the meta be. So you either go meta or you go anti-meta or like you go anti-meta. Well, I don't know what I'm going to start with. I think if I want to just be like safe, I think something like a Vigoroth, Poliwrath, Skarmory, like my team number 1 is pretty safe until you figure it out. I think you'll see right off the bat, I do think you'll see a lot of Mandibuzz, Wireless Guzzlords. I really do think that Darks and Dragons are going to have a big play in this meta. Anyways, let me know in the comments below what you think. If you want to play Ultra League, I'll just put out some Ultra League teams for this afternoon. And that is it. So thanks for watching. See you guys in the next one.